The story begins in a mysterious and dangerous red zone where bodies are falling like flies. Amidst this chaos, a young boy is searching for someone named Asaka. While navigating through the numerous dead bodies, he comes across a woman holding Asaka hostage at gunpoint. Asaka is pleading for her life, but woman remains threatening and warns the young boy not to interfere, or she will kill the hostage. Despite her threats, she suddenly dies just by the boy's intense stare. His ability to kill with just a look, even though unintentional, leaves Asaka shocked at the boy's immense power. The narrative then shifts to the young boy, now asleep on a school bus. His classmate, Tomochika, is trying to wake him up amidst a terrible situation. Despite the chaos around him, including a dragon attacking their bus and the deaths of other students, the boy remains undisturbed in his sleep. Tomochika realizes she needs the boy's help to survive. She wakes him up and he distracts the dragon, but it becomes angrier and threatens them with its fiery breath. Just when the situation seems dire, the dragon is suddenly killed, thanks to the boy's unique and deadly ability. His name is Yogiri, and he possesses a power called instant death magic. After the dragon's death, Tomochika is in shock and wants to understand what happened. However, Yogiri is more interested in playing a video game and decides to wait until Tomochika calms down. His relaxed attitude amuses Tomochika, and she starts to act more normally. They engage in a conversation where Yogiri asks Tomochika about what happened while he was asleep. She recounts the events, starting with a sunny day when their school bus left for a tour. However, the trip quickly turned into a nightmare. After passing through a tunnel, the bus entered a strange meadow, a new and curious place for everyone. However, their peace is shattered when a powerful and dangerous sage enters the bus and kills their teacher for interrupting her. This act instills fear in everyone. The sage claims to have immense power in this alternate world, a place where survival is a constant battle. She kills the bus driver as well, showcasing her strength. She then informs the students that they are in a world where sages dominate, and everyone must struggle to survive. The students are forced to serve this sage, who needs them to stay relevant in this world's power dynamics. The sage uses a magical glow to install a battle song system in the students, essentially turning them into her servants in this perilous world. Unlike the others, they don't glow with the magical energy given by the sage. They are in invisible portals, where they can see their assigned tasks, ranks, powers, rewards, and the time they have left. The sage has set a 1-month deadline for all the passengers to reach the status of a sage. Tomochika learns she's been labeled incompatible by the automatic recruiting system. The sage decides she's not fit for the tasks and assigns her to take care of the livestock to earn mana, a type of magical energy. Her first mission, which starts in an hour, is to avoid and fight a dragon. After the sage leaves, everyone gets busy with their tasks. One student becomes their leader, responsible for managing everyone's status. He can give orders and make decisions for the group. This proud leader decides to use Tomochika, Yogiri, and the other two as bait to distract an incoming dragon, allowing the rest of the group to reach the town safely. He has more powers than the others, and he uses this advantage to control them. They feel powerless and resigned to their fate, waiting for the dragon. Yogiri continues to sleep, unaffected by the extreme stress around him. When the dragon attacks the bus, breaking windows and damaging it severely, the situation becomes dire. One girl, feeling hopeless, gives up and dies instantly. The story then reveals that Yogiri learns about all these events after waking up from his sleep. Upon hearing the tragic tale of deaths and monsters, Yogiri's main concern is to charge his handheld game, which frustrates Tomochika. She expects a more emotional reaction, but he remains calm, unaffected by the recent chaos. Tomochika urges him to take the situation seriously. Yogiri then steps out of the damaged bus to assess the situation. He concludes that the dead dragon poses no further danger, and they need to find a way to solve their current predicament. Tomochika is still trying to understand how they survived the attack of the giant monster. She questions Yogiri about any hidden powers he might have, but he remains quiet, suggesting that their survival was just luck or fate. Suddenly, they see a student flying towards them with 2 helpers. This group is surprised to find the dragon dead and 2 survivors. They wonder how Yogiri and Tomochika, who seem like ordinary students without special powers or ranks, managed to kill the monster. These flying students are relieved because, with the dragon engaged, they had time to escape. They don't care about others, only their own survival. Yogiri feels like attacking these selfish students, but Tomochika, still kind-hearted, stops him. Yogiri knows that these students came with the intent to kill them. One of the helpers, who has healing powers, wanted to turn Tomochika's body into a zombie, but this plan fails. The leader of this group then tries to kill Tomochika with a giant fireball. She narrowly escapes, and the fireball destroys the meadow. The power of these students is evident from the destruction they caused. They try to intimidate and manipulate Tomochika, but she resists. Yogiri decides it's time to act. He tells Tomochika to stay quiet and stands in front of her to protect her. He points at one of the attackers and simply says, "Die." The attacker falls dead, shocking his companions. They can't believe their leader died so easily. The remaining two are terrified. They try to revive their leader but fail, and another one dies. The healer is the only one left. He's too scared to move, fearing Yogiri might kill him too. The fear in his eyes is evident, and he follows Yogiri's commands without question. Yogiri considers explaining his powers, but decides to let the healer check if his partners are really dead. He wants the healer to have no doubts about his abilities. The healer tries to use his powers to revive his fallen comrades, believing his magic can heal any wound. However, his magic fails, and he ends up surrendering to Yogiri, kneeling in front of him, acknowledging Yogiri's superior power. Yogiri explains his unique abilities. He didn't mention them earlier when the dragon died because he wasn't interested in doing so. However, now he feels it's necessary to explain, especially since the healer might try to challenge him otherwise. Tamachika, witnessing all this, is astonished by Yogiri's incredible power. Despite not having the magical glow of a sage, Yogiri possesses an extraordinary ability. He can instantly kill anyone he targets simply by deciding to do so. This power works without the need for any physical action or special equipment. The healer initially doubts Yogiri's abilities, finding them hard to believe, but when Yogiri threatens to demonstrate his power on him, the healer becomes terrified and quickly agrees to understand and accept what Yogiri is saying. However, despite this apparent understanding, the healer still contemplates betraying Yogiri. He tries to use a ball of killing magic against Yogiri, but he fails. Yogiri has another remarkable ability. He can sense any intent to harm him even from a distance and can instantly kill the attacker. These two abilities make Yogiri an exceptional and fearsome fighter in this alternate world. The healer, realizing Yogiri's power and his own inability to challenge him, feels disappointed and recognizes his helplessness in the face of Yogiri's superior abilities. This realization marks a turning point in the healer's attitude, as he now understands the extent of Yogiri's powers and his own limitations. Yogiri confronts the healer, Keen, questioning his boldness in attacking him despite witnessing the deaths of his partners. Keen reveals that he has been in this alternate world longer than Yogiri and the others, summoned here by the mages of the Aman Kingdom. He explains that in this world, they are required to fight for a year and defeat a demon king before returning home. Interestingly, their absence is barely noticed in the real world, where only a few hours pass for every year spent in this alternate realm. The healer adds that time stops for them in this world, allowing them to complete their tasks without worrying about time passing in the real world. Hearing this, Yogiri realizes they have a chance to return home. He contemplates killing the healer to reduce future threats, but the healer pleads for his life, looking desperately at Tamachika for support. Tamachika, indebted to Yogiri for saving her, feels unable to intervene. In a twist, the healer offers to become Tamachika's slave in exchange for his life. However, Tamachika suggests enslaving Yogiri instead, believing he deserves it more. A magical belt, designed to enslave the first person it sees, recognizes Tamachika as its master. Tamachika, not wanting to enslave anyone, transfers the belt's control to Yogiri. The healer, fearing Yogiri's powers, resists but is unable to stop the process. Yogiri becomes the master and decides to let the healer live out of generosity. However, wanting to distance himself from the healer, he sends him to a forest filled with dangerous beasts. The healer tries to resist, but the magical belt, obeying Yogiri's commands, forces him towards the forest. Yogiri, seizing the opportunity, commands the healer not to disclose their encounter to anyone and to hand over all his valuable possessions. The healer struggles, but the belt ensures compliance, leaving him penniless and headed towards a perilous fate. Tamachika, observing Yogiri's actions, starts to believe he might have feelings for her. However, Takatou's flirtatious remarks annoy her. Meanwhile, Sage Sion's reporter informs her of the deaths of 2 high-ranking candidates and 2 commoners, possibly due to instant death magic. Sione, skeptical, thinks there might be a reporting error and decides to investigate later. Tamachika and Yogiri reach the nearest town, just as the evening approaches and the gates are about to close. Tamachika hurries Yogiri to the gate, where the guards stop them to call their leader, Lord Masahiko. Masahiko, looking worried, greets them and talks about the trouble with groups of sage candidates like them. He mentions that normally there would be a toll, but they've been instructed not to hinder the sage candidates. Yogiri explains they got separated from their group, who were heading to the capital, and asks Masahiko for directions. Masahiko replies that they're not obliged to assist sage candidates. He then suggests that he could give them the information if Tamachika spends a night at his mansion. Uncomfortable with this, Tamachika quickly takes Yogiri away. She later tells Yogiri she was worried he might harm Masahiko in anger. Yogiri, surprised, questions if he seems violent, and Tamachika is astonished he hasn't realized it himself. She then observes the town, finding it magical with its mix of beast folk. They meet Myria, a cat girl, who offers to help them for free. Yogiri is skeptical about her intentions, and Myria admits she wants to befriend male sage candidates, considering them influential and easy to charm. Tamachika notes Myria's straightforwardness. Myria clarifies she won't try to charm someone with a partner, but sees value in befriending Yogiri. Tamachika, wanting to explore the town before nightfall, agrees to accept Myria's help. We then see Tamachika is happy about her shopping, having bought some nice clothes. However, she and Yogiri find themselves surrounded by thugs. Yogiri, sensing trouble, confronts them. The leader explains their frustration with the sage candidates who often cause chaos in town with their special abilities, known as gifts. They can't retaliate against those with gifts, but someone like Yogiri, presumed to be without a gift, is an ideal target for venting their anger and can be sold for a good price. Yogiri coolly responds that he'll have to eliminate them. The thugs, underestimating him due to his lack of a visible gift, laugh it off. But then Yogiri commands those behind him to die, and to the shock of everyone, they collapse dead. He tries to half-kill one, but that too results in death. Yogiri then experimentally kills different body parts of the remaining thugs, even causing the death of one's eyes. Most end up dying regardless, leaving only Myru and their boss confused and terrified. Realizing that targeting specific body parts is inefficient and cruel, Yogiri confronts Myru, who pleads for mercy, citing her little brother at home. Despite Yogiri's command for them to die, his power strangely doesn't work, and the duo manages to escape. Tamachika questions if Yogiri let them flee, but he denies it. Soon after, Myria and the boss perish while running. Yogiri suggests they leave quickly, but they're stopped by the town guard, led by a guard named Edelgard. Edelgard has questions about the incident, but Yogiri claims they just stumbled upon the scene. Edelgard reveals she was observing them and saw the thugs collapse as they attacked Yogiri. Tamachika is upset they didn't intervene, but Edelgard explains she was investigating the thugs' connections. Yogiri realizes she was tracking who the thugs intended to sell them to. Edelgard warns them not to try anything, as the guards are under the sage's protection and immune to gifts. Another guard, George, assesses Yogiri and Tamachika and concludes they don't possess gifts, making it hard to believe they're responsible for the thugs' deaths. Edelgard leaves reluctantly. George apologizes for his captain's behavior and, upon Yogiri's inquiry, suggests a good inn. It's then discovered that one of the thugs is still alive. We then see Yogiri and Tamachika staying at a luxurious inn that reminds Tamachika of a castle. They each get their own large rooms, with Tamachika's being surprisingly spacious. Alone for the first time in this new world, Tamachika is startled by a spirit appearing before her, but relaxes when she realizes the spirit looks like her older sister. The spirit introduces herself as Mokomoko Denjura, the wife of the founder's son of the Denjura school, and reveals that she is Tamachika's guardian spirit, appearing now to assist her in an urgent situation. Tamachika is curious about why Mokomoko is appearing only now, despite past dangers. Mokomoko explains she was afraid of Yogiri, understanding that Yogiri's abilities affect spirits. She advises Tamachika to inform Yogiri about her presence for future safety. Mokomoko assures Tamachika that she can protect her from all but physical attacks, revealing that she was the one who stopped the installation of a suspicious gift system that could have allowed the sage to control Tamachika's life. Wondering if others were also protected by spirits from the gift system, Tamachika learns that Mokomoko's goal is to bring the rightful heir of the Denjura archery school back to their world. Although Tamachika wishes to return, she currently depends on Yogiri. Mokomoko offers to personally train Tamachika in the true Denjura school arts. The next day, a tired Tamachika meets Yogiri, having been unable to sleep due to recent events. They discuss catching up with their classmates, and are approached by Celestina, the inn's concierge. Celestina has been helping them, looking for their classmates' whereabouts, preparing language translation and status concealment items, and even making a charger for Yogiri's gaming console. She hands them train tickets to the capital and agrees to keep some of Yogiri's gold, which surprises Tomochika as it's not a typical concierge duty. In the next scene, Yogiri and his friends are on a train to the capital. Yogiri is playing games, and Tomochika is helping him charge his console. Tomochika has already told Yogiri about Mokomoko, the spirit. Now, both of them can see Mokomoko, but they're the only ones who can, as they know about her existence. Tomochika asks Yogiri about the whereabouts of their classmates. Yogiri tells her they are in the primeval forest for training. Suddenly, Yogiri senses danger and saves Tomochika from an attack. The scene shifts to guards questioning a captured criminal who's disoriented from blindness. They report this to the sage Lane and George, but they're unable to heal the man's sight. Lane, a vampire and high-ranking undead, bites the blind man, improving his abilities, but not curing his blindness. She finds the situation intriguing. Suddenly, they are attacked by a hero-class individual. Meanwhile, passengers from the destroyed train learn about a sage fighting nearby. Yogiri and his group leave the train and see a robot battling a sage. Tomochika wonders if Yogiri can simply eliminate these obstacles. Yogiri, however, doesn't want to misuse his powers and explains his self-imposed rules to avoid unnecessary killings. Tomochika agrees with him. During a battle, the sage Sentaro freezes bystanders, but Yogiri and Tomochika survive. The hero Ion attacks Lane, but she heals quickly. Ion, tired of the sage's tyranny, uses a powerful blast in the fight. Elsewhere, Yogiri confronts Santaro for attacking them. Santaro believes people should praise sages, but Yogiri disagrees and kills him. Seeing this, the attacker surrenders. Lane, unharmed, dismisses Ion's attack and orders Edelgard and George to find Yogiri. The aggressor then approaches Yogiri, offering to negotiate. He can't offer a way back to Yogiri's world, but warns that transferring someone as dangerous as Yogiri is risky. Yogiri asks for advice for when they're ready to return to their world. Tomochika says she doesn't need anything, but Mokomoko suggests they consider her idea. The story moves to Edelgard discovering the sage Sentaro's body. Following this, Lane has a discussion with Shin about the incident. Shin is skeptical that Yogiri and Tomochika could defeat a sage, but Lane suggests they have unique magic. Shin speculates it might be instant death magic, although Sentaro was resistant to such spells. Shin thought Lane called her to discuss the darkness, but Lane emphasizes the need to focus on those capable of defeating sages. Shin prefers Lane not to meddle with her sage candidates, but is open to cooperation if Lane tackles the darkness issue. Agreeing, Lane then instructs Mastuki to take the immortal core and head to Hanabusa, suspecting their regular forces might not suffice. The scene shifts to Yogiri and his companions resting in a forest after their journey. Tomochika jokes about not asking the aggressor for a lift, but Yogiri points out it's risky to associate with an invader. Mokomoko then presents Tomochika with a shape-shifting sword she obtained from the robot. Curious about its storage, Tomochika learns it was disguised as her underwear, leaving her surprised.
Yogiri and Tomochika reach Hanabusa City after walking through a forest. Tomochika notes the city's resemblance to Japan and comments on Yogiri's poor physical condition. Yogiri explains he's tired from killing enemies along their journey. Tomochika is confused until she sees the monsters and bandits they encounter. Yogiri clarifies that while he can use his power freely, it tires him out. In the city, they notice it's surrounded by barriers, not walls. Spotting a large hotel, they decide to stay there. Inside, they meet their classmate Takabana, who left his group due to their inefficient leveling. Takabana's maid, who is jealous of Tomochika, gets calmed down by him. Another girl praises Takabana, leaving Tomochika confused. Yogiri doesn't understand the situation either. Takabana introduces the maids as his bodyguards. He has 5 in total who subtly threaten Tomochika. Takabana, who is popular with girls but a narcissist, apologizes for his behavior. Yogiri inquires if Takabana also abandoned them, but Tamachika reveals he's always been arrogant and confident. Takabana then boldly asks Tamachika to become his lover and offers Yogiri special treatment, leaving them both shocked. Tamachika questions Takabana's confidence, and he reveals his dominator class, which allows him to control those weaker than him. She notes he hasn't leveled up as much as others training in the primeval forest. Takabana, mistaking her shock for interest, shares his backstory. After their first mission, Four Eyes advised Takabana to buy cheap level 1 servants to fight for him. Victories would convert enemies into his servants and grant him experience points. Four Eyes, a consultant class adept at plotting and scamming, suggested this strategy to Takabana, who was being avoided due to his class. Four Eyes warned that without becoming a sage, everyone would be reduced to livestock. This motivated Takabana to follow Four Eyes' advice. Takabana admits his abilities don't provide certain information. Four Eyes, who possesses the consultant class, can see hidden details about others. When Takabana questions why Four Eyes is helping him, the plotter simply expresses his wish for everyone to have a chance to become a sage and wishes Takabana luck. Tamachika then comments on how powerful support types are in their world. Yogiri realizes that while they've been talking, Takabana's number of servants and his level have been increasing. Confirming this, Takabana again asks Tamachika to be his lover. She rejects him, but he tells her to think it over and reply later. After he leaves, Tamachika expresses her annoyance with him. Yogiri suggests that Tamachika might be safer with Takabana than with him, confusing her with his comment. Later, as Yogiri rests in his bed, Tamachika grows restless, wondering how long they'll stay there. It's already been 3 days. She asks the spirit to check on Yogiri, but the spirit refuses, fearing Yogiri's reaction. Tamachika, wanting to go outside, then notices smoke in the streets. A man named Lane, tasked with caring for Yogiri, is rampaging through the city, declaring that if citizens die, they'll join his immortal army as zombie soldiers. Yogiri is dreaming about his childhood when the phone rings. He recalls waking up to his dog licking his face and Asako preparing breakfast. He wakes up from the dream and answers the phone, promising to visit Tamachika's room. When he steps out, the corridor appears empty, but an invisible maid is there with a dagger. Using his ability to sense killing intent, Yogiri spots the maid, who plans to attack Tamachika. He uses his power, and the maid collapses to the floor. Upon reaching Tamachika's room, Yogiri informs her of the attempted attack. Confused about why she'd be targeted, Tamachika listens as Yogiri calls the reception to report the collapsed person. He explains to Tamachika that they would be suspects if he didn't report it. Meanwhile, Takabana learns his maid's signal is gone and turns his attention to another monster in the dungeon. He blocks the monster's attack with a barrier, and then counters, injuring the monster's arm. One of his servants praises Takabana's strength. After defeating the monster with a flare bomb skill, Takabana forces it into a contract and becomes its master. The monster's body parts are healed by another servant. Takabana learns the dungeon has 150 floors and orders the new servant to gather more followers from the lower level. He tries to understand why his maid was in the hotel hallway. His team suggests she either wanted to please him by bringing Tamachika or eliminate her. This confuses Takabana as it would be inconvenient for him. His servant points out that their opinions might not always align with his, worrying him about losing Tamachika. Back at the hotel, Tamachika realizes the attacker was Takabana's maid. Yogiri senses the situation is dangerous and advises Tamachika to prepare to leave. Surprisingly, she agrees calmly, prompting Yogiri's surprise at her composed reaction to the tense situation. The spirit warns Tamachika that this situation is dangerous, sensing death. Shocked by the ease of death in this world, Tamachika struggles to comprehend it. As they start to flee, they encounter another of Takabana's servants who questions their destination. When Yogiri asks what she wants, the servant traps him in an ice crystal using a spell. She gleefully announces that her boss, Takabana, wants Tamachika brought to him. However, Yogiri effortlessly breaks free from the ice by attempting to kill it, leaving both the servant and Tamachika bewildered. Confused, Tamachika asks Yogiri what he means by killing the ice. The servant, still in shock, tries casting more spells, but Yogiri neutralizes her magic and destroys her staff. Subdued, the servant agrees to answer Yogiri's questions. He inquires if she can use magic without her staff, to which she replies that her class requires a staff for casting spells. She then produces another wand from her hair. Tamachika, curious about her hidden wand, tells Yogiri to stop prying. Yogiri is surprised by her ability to store wands in her hair. He then questions her about the order to bring Tamachika to Takabana, and the servant confirms that everyone was instructed to do so. Suddenly, another attack comes from the ceiling, but but Tamachika uses her judo skills to counter it. Yogiri is taken aback, but the spirit comments on Tamachika's emerging martial arts talent. Upon closer inspection, they realize the attacker is a doll. More dolls surround them, and the servant produces yet another one from her hair, admitting she thought she could handle the situation alone. Yogiri's eyes gleam, causing the doll-controlling girl to collapse lifelessly. Another girl, who had ordered the dolls to attack but keep Tamachika alive, panics as Yogiri effortlessly destroys all the dolls. Cornered, she pleads for her life, making Tamachika feel like they are the real villains. Takabana senses another servant's death, and learns that Yogiri and Tamachika have extracted all the information from the frightened girl. He tells his remaining maids about Yogiri's lethal ability to kill by mere thought. Though skeptical, Takabana suggests observing Yogiri and Tamachika and planning an ambush. As Tamachika and Yogiri descend the stairs, they are met with a swarm of cockroaches. Tamachika screams, but stops Yogiri from killing them, fearing the trauma. The spirit reveals that Takabana is using the insects for surveillance. Yogiri offers to kill them, but Tamachika balks at the thought of the insects raining down on them. She becomes determined to seek revenge on Takabana. Takabana, watching the scene, underestimates Yogiri's power and orders the cockroaches to attack. Despite his maid's warning, he activates their bloodlust, alarming Tamachika. Yogiri, unfazed, suggests they should kill Takabana, tracking his position through the roach's killing intent. He then commands Takabana to die, and Takabana falls, stunning his servants. Tamachika panics, seeing the roaches still alive, but Yogiri assures her his power is infallible. He explains that the world demands consequences for actions. Noticing the roaches becoming more active due to Takabana's death, Yogiri grabs Tamachika's arm and urges her to run. Meanwhile, Takabana's servants futilely try to revive him. One servant realizes they are free with Takabana's death and walks away. Yogiri and Tamachika head through an alley to exit the city but are startled by distant screams. After listening to Euphemia's story, Lane became curious about Yoga's abilities. She wondered if Yogi could kill her, and her new assistant looked concerned. Meanwhile, we see that Tamachika and Yogi checked outside and found the city was filled with zombies. These zombies were causing a lot of chaos and destruction. Tamachika wondered what was going on, and Yogi mentioned that the zombies were slow, so they could probably escape if they were careful. Tamachika asked if they could help, but Yogi thought it would be tough to save the city. Even a spirit warned them to leave before things got worse. Meanwhile, at the city manor, there were complaints about Masayuki. He had released the zombies into the city, and he explained that Lane, the vampire sage, had given him control of the city. The mayor, however, reminded Masayuki that he had already died and become one of the undead. Therefore, he suggested that Masayuki should gather his zombies and leave the city. But Masayuki revealed that this was Lane's order. He asked the mayor to hand over the key to the city. Following Lane's orders, the mayor gave him the key and asked what he planned to do. Masayuki replied that it wasn't anything important. Then, he used loudspeakers placed around the city to command his zombies to stop moving. After that, he introduced himself to all the citizens and displayed pictures of Yogi and Tamachika on a large screen. He explained that he was searching for them and demanded that the remaining humans should bring them to the central plaza within 1 hour. He warned that if the citizens didn't do as he said, he would make his zombies start moving again, causing more chaos. At the same time, Yogiri and Tamachika were sneaking out of the city. They heard everything the other guy had said and realized he had locked the whole city to stop everyone from escaping. Now, every citizen had 2 choices, either catch Yogiri and Tamachika or turn into a zombie. Suddenly, the mayor entered the room where the other guy was speaking and complained about the harm caused to the citizen. However, the guy explained that he had to threaten them to make them look for the 2. People all over the city began searching for Yogiri and Tamachika, forcing them to hide in alleys. Tamachika thought that humans were now scarier than zombies, but Yogiri insisted they had to run to stay safe. Tamachika asked why they were being chased, and Yogiri figured it was probably because he had killed the other sage. Then, 3 guys found them and vowed to capture the 2, even if it meant killing them. Yogiri warned the guys that he would kill them if they came too close. One of the guys ignored the warning and tried to attack, so Yogiri used his abilities to stop her mentally. The others panicked, and Tamachika complained about the gruesome way they were carrying out their promise. Yogiri explained that these guys were trying to kill them, so they had to be ready to defend themselves. He noticed the other 2 running away and realized that Masayuki was only causing this chaos because he thought Yogiri couldn't harm regular people. This annoyed Yogiri, and he considered negotiating with Masayuki at the plaza. They went to meet him, but the place was eerie, almost like Halloween. Tamachika thought it was the most fantastical thing she had seen in this world. As they got closer, Yogiri asked who Masuki was. At first, Masuki didn't recognize them and wondered if they had given up running. He called them boring for trying to sacrifice themselves for others, but Yogiri didn't agree and called him foolish. Tamachika got anxious after hearing this, and Masayuki asked what Yogiri wanted because if he killed him, the game would be over. Yogiri told Masayuki that he wanted to catch a train and head to the royal capital. He asked if it would be possible for Masayuki to remove the barrier around the city as a favor. This surprised Masayuki, and he became angry. He pointed out that Yogiri was not in a good position to negotiate at the moment. Yogiri realized this and thought he must have something to offer. So, he simply said he would spare Masayuki's life, even though he probably shouldn't. Masayuki got even angrier, calling Yogiri crazy and asking if he wanted to die right there. He ordered his immortal core army to attack Yogiri, explaining that Yogiri couldn't kill something that was already dead. But, as you might expect, Yogiri commanded them to die, and they all fell down. Masayuki was shocked and couldn't understand what had just happened. The mayor took this opportunity to say he wasn't involved in anything. Yet, Masayuki wanted to know how the undead creatures had just died. Yogiri admitted he didn't know but pointed out that since they were moving, it meant they were technically alive. Tamachika complained that Yogiri ignored what had just happened and only answered it. Masayuki still couldn't believe it, but Yogiri gave a confident response. He said he was the one who decided what was dead. In simple terms, if something moves, it's alive. If it stops moving, it's dead. Masayuki got angry and called out to his master, Lane. But Yogiri just asked what Masayuki could do now that his comrades were already dead. Masayuki refused to accept Yogiri's instant death ability, and began transforming into a mix of Batman and a werewolf, but Yogiri told him to die. Tamachika complained that she wanted to see the transformation first, but Yogiri didn't understand why he should do it. She then asked what they should do next because they couldn't negotiate with the undead creatures. However, Yogiri said that wasn't a problem and approached the mayor. The mayor got scared and pleaded to stay alive, promising that he only wanted to keep his city safe. Yogiri simply told him they were doing this to protect themselves. The mayor then explained that Sage Lane had ordered Masayuki to kill the two of them. When Tamachika heard the name Lane, she questioned if Cyan wasn't the real name. The mayor clarified that Cyan was also a sage, but this city was under Lane's control. Tamachika was confused because they had come to this world because of Cyan, and now another sage wanted to kill them. The mayor admitted he didn't know much about it and usually didn't interfere with sage candidates. The spirit then called out to Yogiri, but he said he was already aware that there was some sort of spiritual manipulation happening in that area. Suddenly, Yogiri started feeling a strong urge to kill all around the plaza. Every citizen gathered nearby, which left everyone confused. The mayor then checked Masayuki's body, explaining that if they were using spirit magic, the city barriers should keep them safe. He tried to use the key to activate the barriers, but it didn't work. That's when he realized that Lane was the one controlling the barrier. Meanwhile, Lane was trying to guide a massive monster towards the city. Her new vampire servant, who was one of Takabana's slaves transformed by her, was worried and complained about the danger. But Lane explained that Takabana had been killed from a distance because his hostility was detected. Lane wanted to know how her servant rated Yogiri's threat level, and the servant said it was higher than that of a sage or any mythical being. The servant urged Lane to stay away from Yogiri, but Lane refused. She realized that her servant, despite knowing she was immortal, was concerned for her safety. This made Lane believe that Yogiri must be some kind of god of death. Meanwhile, inside the city, Tamachika asked if Yogiri couldn't kill the source controlling the citizen. Yogiri explained that this situation was different from what happened with Takabana. He started taking down anyone who attacked them, one by one, feeling like it was a test, much like what he experienced as a child. Yogiri noticed the mayor panicking as he watched his citizens die before him. He told the mayor to come closer, but Lane revealed that her plan was to indirectly cause Yogiri's death. She created another clone of herself and ordered the clone to fly up and make even more clones. Yogiri sensed the increasing killing intent, and also noticed a dark aggressor. This huge aggressor was destroying everything in its path, causing panic. On the other side, Lane explained that her clones knew nothing about Yogiri, so they had no killing intent toward him. Yogiri then commanded his clones to attack the city when the aggressor either tried to attack or died. Tamachika asked if Yogiri could kill the aggressor, to which he surprised her by saying yes, as she didn't expect it. The mayor pleaded with Yogiri to save the city, but Yogiri had a bad feeling about doing so. Nevertheless, he ordered the aggressor to die, and while it took effect, he noticed the city being attacked from the air. He saved Tamachika from being hit but wondered if this attack came from the aggressor. Yogiri disclosed that he had killed the aggressor, but this attack blended with the darkness's killing intent, making it hard to notice. He realized that this attack didn't have a specific target. Its goal was to destroy everyone in its path. Yogiri thought that everything up until now was just a test, but Tamachika urged him to stop enjoying the situation.
They got up, and Yogiri explained that he didn't understand what was happening. When they looked at the sky, Tamachika saw several women in dresses falling from above. The mayor recognized them as clones of Lane, and Tamachika asked if Yogiri could do anything to stop her. Yogiri explained that he couldn't do anything because Lane wasn't aiming at him, and they were all moving too fast for him to catch. In short, Lane had planned everything to counter his abilities. Tamachika asked how many Lanes there were since they all looked the same. The mayor revealed they were clones because Lane had super regeneration abilities. Upon hearing this, Yogiri said he could deal with it, but it would be easier if Lane targeted him directly. The mayor brought out a hologram of the city and explained that there was a pattern to the attacks. Lane didn't strike the same place twice, and the attacks were also spaced apart. The spirit even called Lane dumb because she tried to make it random but unintentionally made it consistent. Tamachika thought they could use this information to predict where the next attack would be. The mayor quickly figured out the next target, and Yogiri said he would head there. The mayor offered to assist him with his teleportation ability. Tamachika insisted on going too, and even the spirit wanted to help. They decided to teleport away together. Yogiri and Tamachika held hands, and she led him to the spot where the clone was about to strike. He commanded the clone to die, and the spirit used an ability to create a protective shield around them. After the shield took the impact from the clone's attack, they retrieved it, and Tamachika felt relieved because she thought she might not make it. However, Yogiri noticed something on Tamachika's hand and asked what it was. It turned out that the spirit had used its power to combine some of Tamachika's underwear with the abilities of the previous aggressor, creating a makeshift shelter. The spirit was concerned because defeating the clones wouldn't ultimately solve the problem. But Yogiri reassured everyone that it was okay. The clones then fell and disappeared, leaving Lane wondering how immortal vampires could die. Her servant suggested they shouldn't target Yogiri, but Lane decided she would simply create new clones with different settings. Suddenly, Lane felt a strange sensation in her body, and realized that her true body, hidden in another dimension, was dead. She seemingly plunged into the abyss, but believed this was how she would save the girl. She vanished, and Tamachika noticed that there were no more attacks coming. They returned to the mayor to make preparations and plan their escape. Meanwhile, in a random house, a young girl woke up and saw that her bed looked like a coffin. She thought she might be a vampire, and noticed a rock in her hand. The rock displayed Lane's hologram, revealing that her plan had succeeded, and she had died while the girl survived. Lane explained that the girl was a younger clone created from her, without her memories, to avoid being targeted by Yogiri. Back in the city, the mayor expressed his gratitude for their help and arranged for a car for them, advising them to be careful. However, when they got inside the car, Tamachika complained that Yogiri was playing games instead of driving. Yogiri explained that he couldn't drive because he always crashed cars into walls when he played games. With that, Tamachika took the wheel, and the spirit revealed that her family had the skills to drive anything. They set off on their next adventure. In a forest, Ryuko showed off her samurai skills by defeating a monster. When she returned to her tent, she found Carol inside. To her surprise, Carol revealed that she was a ninja. She gave Ryuko her phone back and admitted that she wanted to use the monitoring app on her phone, just like they did in their world through a satellite to check on Yogiri. However, it didn't work in this world. They both worked for agencies that monitored Yogiri. Ryuko checked her phone and was shocked to see an alert saying that the Alpha Omega's first door was open. While driving, Tamachika tries to wake Yogiri up to get him to drive. However, Yogiri is deeply engrossed in a dream about the day he met Asaka, his foster mother. On that day, Asaka was attending a job interview at a research institute. The interview took a dark turn when she discovered a clause in the contract that forbade her from complaining even if the job caused her death. Despite her attempts to reject it, she was coerced into signing. Yukio, the interviewer, downplayed any sinister intentions, but Asaka grew suspicious. Later, as they descended in an elevator, Asaka learned about the cursed experiments and the mysterious subject named Alpha Omega. Yukio mentioned that Alpha Omega had the power to kill with mere thoughts. As they reached the bottom floor, Asaka was unsettled by the dark atmosphere and strange inscriptions on the doors. Yukio disclosed that she would be taking care of Alpha Omega. As they descended further in another lift, Yukio revealed that Alpha Omega could annihilate anything by will. Asaka, shocked by the revelation, questioned the Institute's expectation for her to care for such a monstrous entity. The scene paints a disturbing picture of the Institute's secretive and potentially dangerous experiments, leaving Asaka uncertain about the challenges that lie ahead. Yukio responds that it's possible because Asaka has a teacher's license, and she realizes that's the main reason she got the job. Yukio tries to explain the urgency of the situation, emphasizing that if she doesn't fulfill her role, humanity might face dire consequences. He reveals that providing Alpha Omega with a proper education is their strategy to prevent a catastrophic outcome.
As Asaka complains about others being more suitable for the task, Yukio insists that she is the perfect fit. Upon reaching the final floor, Yukio hands her papers with instructions, wishes her good luck, and leaves. Entering the vault, Asaka is surprised to find it different from her expectations. Following the map, she discovers a house where she hears noise from a room. To her astonishment, she finds that Alpha Omega is just a little innocent kid. Despite her initial complaint, she picks him up, takes him outside, and instructs him to play like a normal child. However, her mood changes when she recalls Alpha Omega's ability to kill with thoughts. Startled, she hears a noise and sees a shadow, a demon, as the kid describes it. The kid explains that demons often come to kill him. Confused, Asaka learns that he doesn't mind playing outside but asks if they can do it tomorrow since it's almost evening. The scene unfolds with unexpected twists as Asaka grapples with her newfound responsibility and the mysteries surrounding Alpha Omega and the demons. Asaka realizes she forgot about the kid's hunger after her initial shock and helps him up. They exchange introductions, with the kid revealing they call him Alpha Omega or Lord Akakashi before. Feeling responsible, Asaka understands she needs to prepare his meals. However, she discovers her lack of cooking skills and resorts to cup noodles. The kid, now named Yogiri, enjoys them. As they interact, Asaka asks about his parents, but Yogiri doesn't know what parents are. Feeling sympathy, Asaka apologizes and decides to name him Yogiri, thinking about a dog. She teaches him basic gestures and decides to let him use the name Takatou Yogiri. As they continue their conversation, Yogiri reveals he doesn't know what a family is. Meanwhile, Tamachika wakes Yogiri up and discusses the boulder blocking their path. Tamachika remarks on Yogiri's prolonged sleep, and Yogiri explains it's due to exerting too much power in the last city. He then questions their journey to the capital, revealing their goal to return to Japan and talk to Cyan. Yogiri suggests finding an alternative way to communicate with her without going to the capital, but Tamachika insists on following their classmate. As they drive back, they unexpectedly encounter a dragon ready to attack. Yogiri commands it to die, setting the stage for a potential conflict. The narrative intertwines between Asaka's interactions with Yogiri and the unfolding events in the journey back to the capital. Tamachika feels relieved until she notices numerous dragons flying their way, realizing they are in dragon territory. Dragons with hostile intent prepare to breathe fire, causing Tamachika to panic. She grabs Yogiri's arm, urging him to do something. Sensing the danger, Yogiri commands all the dragons to die. The dragons fall from the sky like rain, leading Tamachika to compare it to a dragon insecticide commercial. Despite the chaos, Yogiri remains composed. However, their relief is short-lived as a colossal golden thunder dragon appears before them, casting a large shadow. Tamachika fears being struck by lightning, but notices Yogiri's assurance that the dragon doesn't harbor killing intent. Surprisingly, the dragon turns around and flees in panic, leaving Tamachika bewildered. Yogiri, determined to understand, calls out to the dragon, questioning why they attacked despite being able to comprehend language. The massive dragon turns out to be a frightened little girl who shapeshifted. She regrets trying to talk to them and explains it's a common occurrence in parallel worlds. Yogiri persists in asking why she attacked them. The girl reveals she was testing their qualifications to meet the Sword Master. Confused, Yogiri and Tamachika express disinterest in meeting the Sword Saint and simply want to reach the capital. The girl explains the Sword Saint is in the canyon, and meeting them might lead to a gift. Despite her enthusiasm, Yogiri and Tamachika remain focused on their goal of returning to their original world. Tamachika is skeptical of the old man's words, but Yogiri questions if he can leave. The old man declares a rule that leaving will disqualify everyone. Chaos ensues as participants begin killing each other, and Yogiri and Tamachika observe the unfolding violence. Facing an imminent threat from a group targeting them, Yogiri, having no other option, decides to fight back. However, a stranger intervenes, pledging to protect them. This individual criticizes the participants, believing they misunderstand the Sword Saint's intention. He perceives the situation as a test to assess the candidate's suitability to become a Knight of the Holy King. Tamachika appreciates the stranger's decency, but the spirit notes his skill. The stranger adeptly handles multiple opponents without intending to kill them. Some participants attempt to cast magic at Yogiri, who calmly commands them to die. The stranger is perplexed by their sudden defeat but assumes the old man punished the lawless ones. With everyone conceding defeat, the stranger turns to Yogiri and Tamachika, urging them to stay while he offers protection. Meanwhile, they hear a voice calling for help. A man, seemingly sliced in half, crawls on the ground requesting a stone. Spotting a rainbow-colored stone nearby, Tamachika places it in his hand. Astonishingly, the man crushes the stone and regenerates his body, expressing gratitude. The Sword Saint intervenes, instructing them to follow him as their numbers have diminished. He leads them into the forest, leaving Tamachika uncertain about their next move. Attila pleads with them to stay and participate, revealing that if her recommendation becomes the Knight of the Holy King, she will become their servant. Yogiri finds the situation troublesome, but decides to go along since they haven't obtained any information yet. As they proceed, two other participants introduce themselves as Rick and Lionel, with Lionel explaining that he was compelled to accompany his friend to the trial. Yogiri inquires about the Sword Saint and the Knight of the Holy King. Rick elaborates that a holy knight confronts sealed gods, referred to as demons, with the devil having been sealed 1,000 years ago by the Holy King of that era. Despite Yogiri's skepticism about the devil still posing a threat, Rick reveals that some followers are attempting to unseal him. Meanwhile, Tamachika seizes the opportunity to question Lionel about the healing stone he possesses. Lionel calls it an apology stone capable of healing serious injuries or functioning as gacha token. Tamachika is bewildered, prompting Lionel to disclose that he became a sacrifice for a mysterious organization before arriving in this world. However, a goddess appeared to him, providing him with the stones. Tamachika raises the question of whether gods like to control people's destiny. The spirit responds that while some people are guarded by spirits, others have their fates determined by gods. When Rick inquires about gacha, Lionel demonstrates by using 3 stones for a pull, producing a normal scrub brush. He proudly explains that these items can be exchanged for random trash items. Yet, Tamachika notices that Lionel only has 3 stones left in his bag. Lionel pathetically explains that he receives new stones every midnight, depending on how unlucky his day was. Suddenly, they observe the other participants vanishing, but Attila reassures them that it's an invisible barrier. Upon entering, they encounter a huge tower, but the spirit instructs Tamachika to leave due to sensing evil miasma from the tower. Suddenly, Lionel starts throwing up, and the spirit explains that he got hit by the miasma. The spirit clarifies that Tamachika is feeling fine because she's being protected. Meanwhile, Yogiri is looking around and notices something. Lionel uses his stone and gains resistance to the miasma. Yogiri then asks Attila if it's fine to enter the tower, but she is nowhere to be found. Nick explains that only individuals taking the trial are allowed inside. They enter the tower and take an elevator to the highest floor. There, the old man instructs them to look down. They see a huge energy ball, and the old man explains that's the end of the world. Looking down, Tamachika observes monsters frozen in time during a massive battle. She notices a man in black and a woman in white at the center. She tells Yogiri that the woman's sword is piercing the two, and Rick explains that's the Holy King and the devil. The old man elucidates that his job is to guard this place. Suddenly, a girl named Frederica thinks everything will end if they defeat the entities inside the ball. Maynel calls her name, revealing she's the friend who brought him here. She tells the old man that his duty will end today and throws a huge fireball inside the energy ball. She's confident it's all over now, but the attack barely moves upon entering the energy ball. The old man explains that time flows slowly inside the barrier, so it will take some 100 years before it reaches the Dark Lord. The girl is shocked, but the old man points to another girl, explaining she will provide the details of their trial. She reveals their goal is to go from the roof to the first floor of the tower within 24 hours. A girl asks if they can jump down from the roof, but the other replies they must first accumulate 100 points inside the tower. The duo notices they haven't seen her before but realize that some other participants have been at it. Tamachika ignores it and asks if Yogiri cannot kill the Dark God with his ability. However, she realizes that he has no reason to do it. He then reveals he tried to kill the source of the miasma, and turns out he killed the Dark God. Yogiri and Tamachika want to go to the bottom of the tower and leave. The other two try to come along, but Lionel's friend stops him. She asks for his special stones to get her magic power back. He gives her a stone but says only he can use it. Since she can't use it, she throws it away and complains about him following her even though he's useless. Rick tells them to keep going, and inside, they find many people collapsed. Rick says the tower is full of monsters and traps. He says it should be easy to get through because they're last. He warns them to watch out for traps, but Lionel steps on one right away. He gets hurt but heals himself with a crystal. Tamachika suggests he always keeps a crystal handy. He agrees and ties it to his hand with cloth. This gives him confidence to go ahead. Despite Rick's advice to wait, Lionel opens a door and goes in. The door closes, and they hear Lionel screaming. They force the door open and find a girl dressed as a maid inside. Rick sees Therese and asks what's happening. She says not to judge her, as this is just another way to earn points. Rick doesn't get why Therese is in the trial when she's already a knight, but she explains her qualifications got taken away for accidentally killing too many people. That's why she's doing the trial again. Rick tells everyone to run, but Tamachika sees they're trapped in the room with thin wires. Therese notices Tamachika's sharp eyes and is disappointed they didn't fall for the trap. Rick decides to distract Therese while Tamachika and Yogiri find a way out. But Therese wants to impress the Swordmaster and attacks with her threads, saying a Knight of the Holy King must be the strongest. Tamachika sees Rick blocking the attacks with his shield but knows Therese is much stronger. Yogiri decides to end it and tells Therese to die, making her collapse. Then, Yogiri notices Lionel's hand and realizes he's in trouble. Tamachika finds Lionel dying on the floor, begging for his crystal back. They continue to floor 98 and meet a girl who offers them a safe place to rest. Yogiri suggests splitting up in case they have to fight each other later. Rick agrees, surprised at how cruel the trial is. Yogiri assures Rick they'll be fine. Lionel wants to wait until midnight to replenish his crystal. Rick leaves, Lionel rests, and Yogiri asks Tamachika if she wants to rest too. But there's only one room available, and it has a couple's bed. Tamachika reminds Yogiri about her spirit ancestor always being around. But the spirit decides to hide in the wall and have fun. Tamachika worries as she watches Yogiri undress and put on pajamas without any hesitation. He jumps into bed and falls asleep heavily. Tamachika can't believe he's sleeping in the same room. Meanwhile, Lionel waits in his room for his crystals. He's glad he's survived despite dying 15 times. At midnight, he gets his crystals. But instead of 10, he gets 100, along with a special event guaranteeing an ultra-rare item in the gacha game. He starts playing, hoping for a weapon, but ends up summoning a girl. Confused, he realizes she's the goddess who brought him to this world. She thinks she's joining him as an ally, but she's actually there to check on him. Despite his confusion, she updates his checkpoint so if he dies again, he'll respawn in the same room. In the midst of their trial, the Swordmaster checks in to see how things are going. The girl in the trial is worried because there are more dead bodies than souls accounted for. An older man reassures her not to fret, as there are still enough to maintain the second barrier. Meanwhile, in another part of the world, a girl finds herself in a fight with a guy. She's upset because he's attacking her, but he claims he doesn't want to become a sage like her. She reveals that if he refuses to become a sage, she has to kill him. Using her special ability, she measures his power and confirms he got it from God. He admits it and even surprises her by knowing her name just by looking at her. He tries to use his magic against her, but she cancels it with a few words. When he tries another attack, she copies and nullifies it. He's confused how she can use his magic, but she insists she can do what he can. When he tries magic again, it fails, and she explains that God can take away his powers. Frustrated, he resorts to using his sword. But to her surprise, she can't destroy it due to its high fate score. In a quick move, she dodges his attack and ends up killing him with her small knife. Then, to her shock, her knife starts talking, giving her a new mission to go to Hanabusa and kill Yogiri and Tamachika. Annoyed at the new task, she starts to leave, but she hears a voice asking her to wait. It's Fatso, who tells her the guy she just defeated saved him from monsters and now he wants to serve her. Meanwhile, back in the tower, Ancestor Spirit asks one Tamachika to wake up. Tamachika opens her eyes, only to see Yogiri sleeping deeply beside her and using her melons as a pillow. She quickly gets up, and the spirit pleads for help. Tamachika notices the spirit stuck halfway in the wall and asks what's happening. The spirit explains she saw Yogiri holding onto Tamachika in his sleep and tried to give them privacy, but she got stuck when she tried to peek. Tamachika complains, and the spirit reveals that the tower is gathering the souls of the dead in one place, causing the walls and floors to absorb her. When Yogiri wakes up, the spirit asks for his help. Yogiri tries to stop the tower's absorption function. The spirit is almost absorbed, and Tamachika bids farewell. Yogiri touches the wall to focus his power, and activates his skill to kill the mechanism activating it. The spirit escapes, wondering why they're collecting the souls of the dead. Yogiri thinks there's a hidden purpose to the trial. He warns Tamachika to be ready to defend themselves because he'll attack anyone hostile without asking questions. She's confused because that's what he usually does. Yogiri explains he's been trying to avoid killing, but now they can't hold back because the other participants will try to kill them. Tamachika thinks it's too late for Yogiri to warn her because she's already prepared. She surprises him by saying he's been using his power to protect her, so it's like her killing someone. She doesn't want him to complain because all he does is keep her safe. She reminds him to be careful, which makes Yogiri blush. He changes the subject, saying he's hungry, so they order room service. Meanwhile, the other girl is at a canyon and encounters a golden dragon. Fatso tells her to run because her ability won't work against a dragon. But she's confident, believing a big dragon can't fly. Suddenly, the dragon falls, and she reveals she can change events if she believes in them, but only if they're not too important. The dragon bites Fatso's arm, but she cuts off its head. Then an aggressor appears and absorbs the dragon's information before escaping. The girl spots a tower in the distance and wants to find Yogiri there, but Fatso refuses, fearing for her safety. Meanwhile, Yogiri and Tamachika continue through the tower. Yogiri feels uneasy about bypassing traps and riddles too easily. Suddenly, a stranger appears and accuses Yogiri of cheating. He claims to be the tower's builder and says he can appear anywhere. Tamachika complains that what Ikulja is doing is also cheating, but the guy explains he struggled to set traps, only for someone to ruin them. Yogiri explains they just want to leave the tower, but Ikulja says they can't because the tower's purpose is to keep the dark god sealed. Yogiri tries to negotiate, offering to leave peacefully, but Ikulja doesn't trust him. He thinks Yogiri might be working for the dark god. Ikulja finally introduces himself as the High Wizard, but Yogiri isn't interested. He tells Ikulja to die, which shocks Tamachika. She asks if Ikulja seems like a VIP, but Yogiri says even so he tried to kill them and they should keep moving. Meanwhile, the Swordmaster notices something wrong with the tower's system. The soul path is broken, and traps and riddles are being destroyed without activating. Elsewhere, Rick reaches 100 points by defeating another participant. He sees a big fire ahead and realizes it's caused by Lionel and his friend. She explains she's helping Lionel, who has no points, by creating a fire barrier to force him to fight. Lionel manages to win, and Rick notices he's getting stronger. Meanwhile, Yogiri and Tamachika come across an arena where two people are fighting. They see a guy sitting on a throne with two girls next to him. He tells one of the girls her opponent's attacks are weak, and she takes it as encouragement. Tamachika watches the fight, and the spirit asks what they should do. Yogiri thinks it's simple. Since the fight doesn't involve them, they should move on quickly. But Tamachika notices the door is behind the guy. The guy tells the opponent to get serious, so she reveals she's a half-demon and vows to finish the fight fast to avoid the Swordmaster finding out. She uses magic and her sword to attack the other girl. However, the other girl drops her sword and starts punching instead. It turns out, the rabbit girl is better at close combat than using a sword. Tamachika thinks the fight will never end, so Yogiri decides to ask the guy to let them pass. The guy asks who he is, but Yogiri says they won't get in his way. Still, the guy refuses to let them pass because his disciples don't have enough points yet. Yogiri doesn't want to fight because he and Tamachika only have 6 points combined. This upsets the guy, who insists they should fight. Yogiri disagrees because he just wants to leave, but the guy says he's enjoying the trial and won't let anyone quit. Yogiri checks with the other girl, and she says he can do what he wants. The guy on the throne sees this as a chance for a 3-on-3 fight. He tells Yogiri if he wins, they can pass. Tamachika panics, saying Yogiri's negotiation skills are terrible. He tries to explain that people don't listen to him. The half-demon worries about the other girl's strength, but the guy reveals she's his weakest apprentice. He introduces his girls and says he wants to keep the half-demon and Tamachika. He orders his girls to kill Yogiri but spare the others. Yogiri commands them to die, and they collapse. With the victory, Yogiri and Tamachika start to leave, but the guy won't give up. He's about to attack when Yogiri kill him too. Tamachika notices, but doesn't say anything. As they get ready to go, the half-demon girl asks if Yogiri is the one who killed everyone. He admits it, and she begs for his help. Yogiri is unsure, but Tamachika tells him to at least listen to her request. Theodisia introduces herself to Yogiri and Tamachika and tells them she's searching for her missing little sister. She came to the tower hoping to find her, as she heard that people of her race were trapped there. The half-demon warns the students that helping her might make them seem hostile to the sword master. Yogiri says his actions are already causing trouble in the tower, so he doubts helping Theodisia with his ability will be useful. The best they can do is assist her in searching the facility, and she's thankful for any help they can offer. Theodosia suspects her sister might be underground because she senses the presence of her kin there. She quickly pulls up her hood when Rick, Lionel, and Frederica join them. They all head to the first hall where Yuri, the tower examiner, awaits. There are 17 participants remaining in the test. Urabe is interrupted by his subordinates, who inform him that the tower's barriers are malfunctioning. There's a sudden explosion as they estimate the Dark Lord will breach the barrier soon. The first barrier dissipates, and Orgain, a demon, appears. He admits to causing the explosion, thinking it would remove the barrier. Everyone is overwhelmed by his presence. Urabe knew about the attack but expected it to happen in 3 days. He assigns the recent graduates their first task as knights: defeat Orgain or humanity is doomed. Yogiri quietly guides Theodisia and Donora underground while the others are occupied. The girl wants to object, but Yogiri doesn't want to attract Orgain's attention and anger the sword master. Lionel asks if they should also leave, but Rick thinks it's too late to escape the opponents on this level. And Frederica doubts they could win with cowardly people like Lionel around. Orgain starts to easily defeat the knights until they reveal how to break the second barrier. Frederica tries to blast him with a powerful beam, but the demon effortlessly blocks it. Suddenly, Lute, another demon, appears and praises her attack. He introduces himself and his partner. Frederica swiftly attacks again, but Lute stops her, saying she's not strong enough to face them. Feeling overwhelmed, Frederica steps back, horrified when Lute transforms her hand into a snack and takes a bite, leaving her devastated on the floor. Rick swiftly attacks, but Lute dodges his move. Lute believes that Rick has a better chance against them. Meanwhile, Lionel's system notifies him of a potential reward activation. Despite his bad luck, Lionel uses up all his resources, summoning the goddess Vahanato once again. Disappointed, Lionel's face falls, but Vahanato assures him that she's serious this time. Vahanato dismisses the spawn of the Dark Lord as weaklings and strides forward to resolve the situation swiftly. Humans' faces show fear as Orgain bows to Vahanato. Lute rushes to embrace her as if they are old friends, and the goddess informs Lionel that meeting her was the unluckiest thing to happen to him. Vahanato's idea of taking care of everything involves the destruction of humanity, shocking Lionel. Meanwhile, as the trio descend the stairs, they find themselves trapped in an endless loop. Mokumoko reveals that a barrier is distorting the space. Yogiri suspects that there's an important place ahead, but he's unsure about using his power to deal with it because it might have been made by Theodisia's people. Suddenly, a scream echoes, and something breaks through the barrier. Tamachika sees a blade-like creature rush past her. Their focus shifts when Theodisia senses something and opens a door, revealing a horrifying sight. Yogiri arrives soon after and warns Tamachika not to come in after witnessing the scene himself. Half-demons are trapped in tubes to extract their magical abilities. Theodisia is relieved her sister isn't there, but seeing her people in such a state is heartbreaking. As she ends their suffering, Yogiri tells Tamachika they'll go back up and decide what to do next. Theodisia wants revenge, so they plan to confront the Sword Master. Upstairs, Urabe sees the severity of the situation and names Rick as the new Sword Master. If the old one falls, Rick will take his place. Lionel tries to stall for time so the others can make a plan by asking Vahanato why she used him. She admits that the Dark Lord is her lover, called Albagarma, and she came to save him. The humans are shocked to hear his name, as it's taboo, like Baltimore's. She explains that she tried many ways to free him from the tower, but the Sword Master always stopped her. So, she decided to use Lionel's bad luck as a weapon. Lionel feels awful that his bad luck could cause humanity's downfall. Vahanato confirms the deaths of the barrier's creator and another person, making it hard to fix. She destroys the barrier's core, dispelling the second layer. The trio comes out to face the situation, but to their surprise, the Dark Lord falls from the sky. The Divine King can't believe the threat is gone. Yogiri had confessed to Tamachika earlier that he killed the Dark Lord impulsively. Theodisia seizes the chance to defeat Yurei, while Hedgehog takes out Vahanato. Yogiri thinks that the thing Tamachika sensed earlier might be the cause. Lute quickly heals Vahanato's wound, but the death of her lover causes her to have a mental breakdown. Meanwhile, Organ goes to retrieve Albagarma's body, remembering that his master is a deity that craves living sacrifices. He orders the other demons to attack the humans. Yogiri hides and defeats all the demons. During this time, Vahanato randomly casts spells. The Divine King creates a barrier to protect Rick and the others. AI and a distressed Hanakawa arrive at the battlefield. Hanakawa uses her ability to inform Rick that he's now a sword master and his holy blade can stop Vahanato's rampage. Following her advice, Rick impales the goddess, ending the chaos. Hanakawa points out Yogiri to AI, who realizes how powerful the student is and becomes sickened. She wonders what kind of monster Shin has summoned. AI cancels her assassination attempt and respectfully retreats, leaving Hanakawa behind. Things calm down, but Rick confronts Otis about eliminating Urabe and dismisses Yogiri's intervention. The Divine King tells Rick to step down, revealing that it was Yogiri who defeated the Dark Lord and all the demons. Yogiri tries to downplay his power, but the Divine King expresses gratitude. Rick couldn't believe it and asked Yogiri who he was. Yogiri replied that he was just a regular student summoned by the sage. But Tamachika quickly interrupted, saying that calling him an average student was taking away the true meaning of average student. They plan to head to the capital, but Yogiri wants to travel only with Tamachika, so they part ways with the rest. Rick gives them a map and necklace to navigate the capital easily. Hanakawa is left behind and approached by a furious Lute seeking an explanation. Meanwhile, Yuichi informs Shin that AI went missing after her mission to eliminate Yogiri in Gorilla Canyon. The sage summons a scientist to learn more about Yogiri. The scientist, initially confused, soon realizes the situation and is relieved that Yogiri is gone. However, their relief is short-lived when they discover that Alpha Omega's gate number 1 is open. Despite pleading to be sent back,
it's too late as the scientist's head detonates. The sage is left terrified, pondering who Yogiri is. This brings an end to our episode. See you with the new episode next week. Until then, subscribe to our channel and check out our other videos. Back at the bus, Ayaka's diagnostic system activates, analyzing her current state. It separates her mind from her virtual body and connects it to her physical body, prompting her to awaken. Urged by her plan execution unit, she regains consciousness swiftly. Her plan execution unit advises her to assess the situation quickly due to the limited time. Ayaka, confused, looks around, unsure of her whereabouts. The unit informs her that she is an android, and her battle unit expresses satisfaction that the AI unit successfully activated her. Her judgment unit, which holds the highest authority over her, is her emotional core. Her medical unit conducts a scan and discovers severe injuries. It warns her that she has only 39 minutes until shutdown, surprising her. The judgment unit presents her with a choice: to continue imitating humans or to lift restrictions and proceed with the next course of action. Yogiri reluctantly eats the food, assuring Asaka that it's delicious. However, when Asaka tries it herself, she finds it so awful that it makes her feel sick. After breakfast, she prepares to wash the dishes. While going through her work instructions, she realizes she needs to provide basic education, which frustrates her as she doesn't know how to accomplish this. Hoping that teaching Yogiri at an elementary level will suffice, Asaka starts planning. Meanwhile, Yogiri is solving some problems when they hear someone entering the house. Asaka, curious, cautiously opens the door to find a girl carrying groceries. When asked, the girl identifies herself as a robot, making Asaka concerned about raising Yogiri surrounded by robots. Despite her worries, Asaka asks the robot to bring additional items, including an elementary textbook, household appliances, entertainment devices, and even a dog. After Yogiri finishes his work early, Asaka decides to take him outside, marveling at the view despite being underground. However, seeing floating objects on the ground reminds her that they are in a farm. Asaka begins to feel apprehensive about their situation, fearing for their safety. At the end of the month, Asaka submits her monthly report to her supervisor, Yukio. Surprised by her resilience, Yukio encourages her to continue, but Asaka expresses doubts about providing adequate education to Yogiri. Yukio reassures her that she can manage, but Asaka insists that she needs additional support to succeed. Yukio explains to Asaka that many researchers give up after just one day with Yogiri, emphasizing the difficulty of the task. Reflecting on her own challenging experience, Asaka understands why others typically quit so quickly. Yukio then asks her if she hates her job, and she admits her strong dislike for it, questioning why she's confined to such a place. In response, Yukio reassures her that they appreciate her contribution and hands her a package, revealing it to be her month's salary. Despite this gesture, Asaka remains resolute in her decision to leave. Surprised, Yukio informs her that she's free to go outside, which astonishes Asaka as he hadn't mentioned this option before. He asks if she wants to leave, but she expresses concern about leaving Yogiri behind. Yukio assures her that robots will handle Yogiri's meals, but Asaka wonders why she was responsible for cooking them in the first place. Yukio explains that they needed her unique touch of care. Encouraged, Asaka immediately requests a vacation. Suddenly, Asaka finds herself in a cell, her memories fragmented. She recalls enjoying a meal and shopping in the city, followed by a stay at a luxurious hotel. But she's unsure how she ended up in the cell. A voice from a communication device reassures her that they mean no harm and explains that their organization secures anomalies to protect the world, seeking to have a conversation with her. The next day, Yogiri wonders where Asaka is, so he asks his courier robot. She replies that Asaka went on vacation, which disappoints Yogiri. He sits outside, feeling lonely, and hopes for Asaka's return. Seeing his dog also feeling lonely, Yogiri decides to search for Asaka himself. He questions the robot about Asaka's location, but she doesn't have the information. Determined, Yogiri asks her to bring the researchers who know where Asaka went. However, the robot explains she can't leave because she can't open the door from the inside. Somehow, Yogiri manages to contact the control room and demands they open the door. Panic erupts in the control room, and they notify Yukio. Rushing to the scene, Yukio finds everyone collapsed on the floor. He asks his colleague what happened, and the scientist explains that Yogiri has taken control of the lady scientist, and anyone who interfered lost their life. Yukio is shocked by Yogiri's ability and orders his security team to shoot the lady scientist. However, he collapses suddenly. Yogiri enters the room and asks Yukio about Asaka's whereabouts. Yukio informs him that Asaka is on vacation, but Yogiri inquires when she'll return. To Yogiri's dismay, Yukio reveals that Asaka won't be coming back because she was taken by the agency.
Feeling determined to help Asaka, Yogiri asks Yukio for assistance, but Yukio explains that the organization is too powerful for them to challenge. Undeterred, Yogiri resolves to rescue Asaka and warns Yukio to keep the incident a secret. Meanwhile, Asaka finds herself at the agency base, feeling frustrated by her unconventional job and worrying about Yogiri. Suddenly, she hears commotion outside her room and sees an opportunity to escape. As she tries to leave, a woman points a gun at her, contradicting their promise not to harm her. Yogiri enters the room, delighted to have found Asaka, but she is surprised to see him. Despite the woman's threats against Asaka, Yogiri intervenes using his powers to neutralize the threat. Asaka wonders about the fate of the woman Yogiri neutralized. Yogiri rushes to embrace her and assures her they can return home. Walking out of the room, Asaka is astonished by the extent of the damage Yogiri caused to the facility. She smiles at him to reassure him, and they depart from the base. Upon arriving home, Asaka takes Yogiri to his residence and then seeks out Yukio in the garden. She questions him about the consequences of Yogiri's actions, to which Yukio responds that there won't be any repercussions. Asaka is taken aback by the lack of punishment for Yogiri's behavior. Yukio explains that they cannot afford to let Asaka resign now, but she is frustrated by his nonchalant attitude. He promises to implement additional measures to ensure her safety and asks if she is willing to continue her work. Reluctantly, Asaka agrees, acknowledging that leaving Yogiri unattended could lead to further trouble. She informs Yukio that she still has more to teach Yogiri, if only to maintain peace and prevent further chaos. Yogiri asks Asaka if she wants to play a game, and she promises to join him soon. Hurriedly, she leaves Yukio and rushes into the house. Suddenly, she realizes she left her bag behind at the agency base, causing her to feel sad about losing her month's salary. Tamachika gazes at Yogiri as he sleeps in her car. Makamoko suggests to Tamachika that she should spend the rest of her life with Yogiri, surprising her with the accuracy of her intuition. Intrigued by Yogiri's ability, Makamoko expresses a desire to incorporate some of his essence into their bloodline. However, Tamachika reminds her spirit that Yogiri must be allowed to make his own decisions. As Yogiri wakes up, Tamachika tries to conceal her conversation with her spirit. Wondering about their next steps upon arriving in front of the royal capital, Tamachika discusses their situation with Makamoko. Suddenly, they find themselves surrounded by soldiers. Tamachika hopes they won't be arrested, but Yogiri reassures her that they will fight back if necessary. The chief guard, Torx, introduces himself and informs them that their vehicle belongs to the Immortal Corps. Yogiri clarifies to Torx that they are not associated with the Immortal Corps, explaining that they acquired the vehicle from the mayor, Muta. However, Torx seems skeptical of their explanation. Yogiri then asserts that they are candidates for the Sage of Sion and are here for what could be considered a trial. To validate their claims, Torx decides to examine their possessions, although Tamachika is hesitant about allowing him to do so. Yogiri reassures her, advising her to trust in Celestina. One of the soldiers conducts the appraisal, and Torx scrutinizes the results. Despite the confirmation that they are indeed Sage candidates, Torx remains distrustful, as he knows such documents can be forged. In response, Yogiri presents him with an amulet, prompting them to immediately kneel. Tamachika inquires about the significance of the amulet, and Yogiri explains that Rick instructed him to show it to anyone who stops them in the royal capital. He then hands Tamachika her amulet, revealing it is engraved with the royal family crest. Just as Torx is about to permit their passage, David, the youngest member of the royal family, intervenes. He interprets the meaning of the amulet, emphasizing that it indicates their connection to Rick and their status as Knights of the Divine King. David also warns them that the amulet does not grant immunity to lawlessness, and Torx is urged not to be disrespectful. David requests Torx to present him with the holy sword he obtained from the Sword Master, given his status as a Knight of the Divine King. However, Yogiri admits he didn't receive such a sword, surprising David. David expresses disbelief that Rick holds the title of Sword Master without possessing exceptional swordsmanship. He challenges Yogiri to prove his worth with his sword skills, refusing to lose to someone lacking proficiency in swordsmanship, especially as a Knight of the King. Tamachika contemplates whether they should retreat, but Makamoko encourages her to engage in the battle. Tamachika acknowledges her limitations in defeating opponents with a high fantasy level. Makamoko points out that David's fantasy level is relatively low. Yogiri advises Tamachika to attempt it, promising to intervene if necessary. As the battle commences, Yogiri observes Tamachika's unorthodox sword style. Makamoko explains that their family's style involves misleading opponents with deceptive movement. Although it appears they are in a standoff, Makamoko reveals that Tamachika is already in motion. She conceals her left leg's movement to deceive David while subtly adjusting her sword's position to create misperceptions of distance. Tamachika suddenly tosses her sword into the air, swiftly bypasses David, and delivers a precise strike to his lower body. Yogiri is impressed by Tamachika's skillful moves in the battle. Torx announces her as the victor, and the guards express amazement at her abilities. After the fight, Yogiri examines the enchanted castle walls upon touching them. David explains that these walls were constructed by an ancient wizard, capable of withstanding any assaults. David is surprised to learn that Yogiri is acquainted with the wizard. Tamachika questions why David is accompanying them, and he reveals his intention to serve as their guide. Upon entering the castle, Tamachika notices numerous martial artists. David informs her that they are explorers preparing to challenge the underworld. Tamachika expresses astonishment at the existence of an underworld, to which David explains that it is ruled by a dark lord whose minions seek to break free. Yogiri informs David that they no longer require his guidance, as they are nearing their destination. David bids them farewell, leaving Tamachika feeling he was somewhat impolite. Yogiri suggests discussing their reunion with classmates. Tamachika believes they need to devise an excuse for their bus escape, but Yogiri advises her to first decide if she is willing to forgive them. As they approach the king, Yogiri is taken aback by the sizable assembly. The king commences his address, but Shinya, another sage candidate, foolishly challenges him. Tamachika is incredulous at Shinya's audacity. The king rebukes Shinya, reminding him that previous challenges by sage candidates ended similarly. The candidates are surprised that Shinya's Araj master ability did not intervene. The king silences them and explains that significant achievements are necessary to attain the status of sages.